Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Youthful Podcast, a podcast brought to you by Triumph. I am one of your co-hosts, Lewis Howell, and I'm joined by the amazing
Halima.
Yes, and we are here and we're going to be chopping it up week in, week out. Do you get what I'm saying? Because we care deeply about the youth sector, as we're hoping that all of you do as well. I should say the youth sector in the UK, innit, Halima, because people might be listening from all parts of the world, let's hope.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So whilst we're based here in the UK, whilst we work in and for the young people of this country, work in the youth sector for the young people of this country, because to say work in the young people of this country don't make no sense. But anyway, put that to one side. Yeah, whilst we do that, we are hoping that people from other parts of the world who also are just as committed to serving the young people in their respective countries will be just as compelled to hopefully engage with this, hopefully provide a critical thought for them to be able to think about how they're approaching their work as well. So yeah, man, we're excited. This is episode 1. And we're just ready to sink our teeth into this and keep moving forwards, because let me tell you something, a bit of background here. Me and Halima send the most voice notes to each other ever.
Yeah,
do you get what I'm saying? Because do you know what it is? Halima's like just a legend when it comes to always asking the right question. So it's like we're doing the stuff, but Halima's always like, but why are we doing the stuff like that? And how could we be doing it differently? And what other lens could we be applying to the way in which we're currently approaching the thing, which is phenomenal? And so it was like, well, we can't just have all these conversations on WhatsApp and the world don't know about it, because actually this is quite progressive. So here you go, you're getting a podcast, so make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share it with people, leave a review, whatever it is you need to do to support this. Do you get what I'm saying? So before we get into it, Halima, like, why are you compelled for us to have this space to be able to talk like this and for people to listen?
I think for the reasons you just said, because we have really interesting conversations about very topical things that affect not only us, the wider community we're working in, and we need to push it outwards.
Agreed.
Right? Because then we'll see the community is bigger and people are actually thinking similar to us.
True.
Or they're curious about what we're thinking, and that's how we grow.
100%.
So to kind of move our thoughts, ideas, curiosities outwardly forward to share and build the community.
So important, man. And I love the fact that you've used the word community already, because I was even at that roundtable yesterday, which, shout out to Youth Access for the great work they're doing. They're exploring racial equity within youth mental health services, access to mental health for young people from global majority backgrounds and global majority communities more broadly, to be fair. But I say that to say, when I was there yesterday, I was thinking a lot about the fact that they were asking what can different people bring to this space, and I was like, it's beautiful. In Triumph, we have a network, we have a community, we have a movement, I would like to say, we're going to be growing, and that in itself is an asset. So yeah, whatever we can do to be pouring into that community that you've just named is really important. So this podcast is another example of us doing that beyond all of our great work.
Shall we pause there for listeners, viewers, as a reminder on who Triumph are,
True.
what Triumph does,
True.
what the mission is?
Yes, that's important. I think we might have to do this in every episode. Even at episode 152, we still do it. Do you get what I'm saying? So Triumph, we are an organisation that originally started as an action group, and our commitment is to being able to increase racial equity within the youth sector structurally and systemically. So for us, it's not necessarily about operating at a micro level, organisation to organisation or individual to individual, trying to change behaviours and practices at that level, but really thinking about at a sector-wide level, really taking that macro lens. What is it about the way in which the youth sector is currently structured and the systems that are currently in place that are not producing positive outcomes for colleagues and organisations and young people from global majority communities? And so for us, it's about what do we need to do to be able to solve those problems, and we do that through our 3 A's, which are our approach. The first A is about awareness raising, so raising awareness of the practice that is getting in the way of people from global majority communities, organisations from global majority communities being able to experience prosperity, as well as raising awareness of practice that is helping to contribute to that. Second A is about analysis, so how do we start to analyse the information, the evidence, the data, but even analyse and scrutinise new programmes and interventions coming into the sector that have the opportunity to help to increase equity. And the third A is all about active facilitation, so bringing together the colleagues from those different organisations across the sector from all backgrounds to co-create solutions with us to be able to help increase equity in the sector. And so that is Triumph. That's why we exist, that's what we're committed to, and yeah, we encourage people to engage.
And we do that whilst also having a Good time.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'll slow there. Yeah. That is a key thing, you know. Do you know what it is?
Time.
I say it in moments that I think it's necessary to say, and because I'm so used to being the one saying it, I forgot to say. I'm so glad Halima's here because that is true. We are having a good time. Let me tell you something, people. Yeah, who was I chatting to the other day? I was chatting to my therapist about it. That's what it was. I was like, let me tell you something, yeah? I said, listen, you see me, I say to everybody, for the work that I do in Triumph, in 7PK, and Revolution High, whatever it is, if man really thought deeply about the work that I'm doing, I'll just start bawling because I'm trying to deal with some serious issues. Do you get what I'm saying? So I have to focus on having a good time or else it's going to get too heavy. Do you get what I mean? So whatever we can do to make sure we're having a good time, we're here to do that. So if anybody's ever engaged with the Triumph Solution Spaces, anything to do with Triumph, just know we're here to have a good time. Do you get what I'm saying? And eat a good food. I'm just going to let you know that as well. If you've ever been to one of our conferences, you know you struggle to find a conference that provides better food than ours. I'm just letting you know that from now. But anyway, let's get into our icebreaker so we can get into our main topic as well. So we're going to use the icebreaker that we used in our 2026 Solution Spaces that launched this week, which is exciting. So for whenever you guys are first getting to see or hear this, just know we recently, in whatever period of time since it started, have launched our brand new set of Solution Spaces. And the prompt is as follows, Halima. If you could choose a character from a film, book or TV show that you think currently represents, you know, how you're moving in the sector at the moment, or what how you're feeling about, you know, the work that you're doing, what film, character or TV show, what character from a film, book or TV show would you choose and why?
Sure. Okay. Well, I kind of did this yesterday.
That's fine, bring it in.
So I'm going to go with the same response as yesterday, is the little girl from Encanto.
Top tier film.
So good.
What a film.
So good.
What a film.
Watch it every month.
Oh, I respect that.
I love it.
You know the guy that wrote Hamilton in theatre, he's the one that did all the music for Encanto. So yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's cold.
Okay.
But yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The character is Mirabel, the little girl, because she goes through a really challenging time and she's kind of isolated by herself. She's believing in something bigger and she wants to do it. She wants to find her special thing, her special power, like her purpose. And then she does it. She like walks through all those barriers, does it, and then the whole community is saved and the community is good. And then, you know, the visuals, it all turns back to colour, and all the flowers have bloomed and there's like water flowing and they're all singing. That's what I want for the sector. Not that I'm by myself, but sometimes it gets like that.
No, but it can feel like that. I think when you're doing important work, feeling lonely is real sometimes. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it is real. And obviously in your case, if we're being super transparent, like, you're the only full-time person that works on Triumph, so it's very easy for it to feel even more lonely. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But yeah, the truth is it can get lonely, but it's amazing to know you've got that commitment to that vision and that willingness to push through, and that, you know, Encanto has provided you an example of what it can look like. Do you get what I'm saying? And what it will look like.
I will say, just to add to that, you know, one of the things I literally live by with my work in the youth sector that I've been knocking about for a long time, as you know, is I always think this, you know, with young people and how I see them and view them and think about them. And it's just like one thing I always go back to, like, we owe them so much.
100%.
We owe them
100%.
so much, because anything, you know, some of the privileges we have, some things that we're really, really grateful for. Why is that? Because the young people were on the streets ensuring that was happening. They were protesting, they were making sure, even as recent as 2020. So my thing is, as tough as it gets, you know what, we owe them kids. We owe them. We owe them so much. So it's a small contribution.
100%. Like, they deserve it. They absolutely deserve it.
Yeah.
That's real.
They're all our children, you know?
Literally.
All our children.
That's how we have to view it. Do you get what I'm trying to say? That's absolutely how we have to view it. I'm trying to think if I've got a character, you know.
Who's your character?
I'm going to go with one that everybody hears me.
Marvel.
Nah, it's actually not, you know, and I obviously am a Marvel guy, but I'm going to go with one that I tend to use in spaces that I do with DEI, and you probably are not surprised. I'm going to go with Judy Hopps from Zootopia. I think, you know, like, she first non-predator animal to join the Zootopia Police Department in the film. Her commitment to wanting to break ground and trailblaze, but then also she went on a journey to really like have to obviously check herself, work with someone that she originally had, you know, concerns and suspicions around, understood. She had to learn about what allyship needed to look like. She had to know about how to call in reinforcement. She had to go on that journey to say, I want to create equality and equity within this particular police department. Then it went beyond the police department to her wanting to create that actually within the whole of Zootopia. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So I feel like I'm in a Judy Hop space right now, where it's like, again, similar. She didn't give up either. Even at the point when, you know, she actually quit, and she quit not because she wasn't doing well, but actually because she did do well, but she wasn't happy with the response to what took place. And then she said to herself, okay, I can do that because I think it lets me walk out with some dignity and pride, but actually the job's not finished. The job's not finished. So she's like, yeah, she got stuck back in. So I'm gonna go Judy Hopps from Zootopia,
I
man.
love that.
And thank you. And tell us, on whatever platform you are listening to this on or watching this on, what would yours be? If you had to choose a character from a film, book or TV show, tell us what would yours be this week, and that you feel represents what you're doing in the sector at the moment. And if you're not from the youth sector, but you're listening to this because you work in corporate and you just really care about young people's development and opportunities for them in UK society, or you're listening to this and you work in education, or you work in healthcare, or you work in whatever sector or industry it is, but you care about young people and their development, or you just love me and Halima, maybe you just love us too, and that's why you're listening to this, please engage, tell us. Like, we need to make this conversational, so tell us as well what yours would be. So with that being said, this is our first episode, so I need to remember the names of all of our segments. Our next segment is the main segment. What is the name of this segment again? Scroll up a little bit, please. We wrote this down, guys, because we took care of it. Like, Nikita was very intentional. Where's my man? Where's my? Do you know? Let me tell you something about Halima. Yeah.
Here's the story.
Halima is definitely somewhere in her ancestral DNA. She's got St. Lucian in her. She's got St. Lucian in her. Do you know why? Because the amount of times Halima will ask me in a working week, but where's this? As in, not because she can't find it in like Google Drive or something. We're not talking about admin. We're talking about where's the substance, where's the depth, where's the
framework that we're
where's the framework that we're holding it in. But it's, to me, the reason I laugh is because in St. Lucia, it's like, you always find an elder or something saying, but where is so and so? Where is that thing there? Where is this thing there? I swear. So for me, Halima is always doing that. And so we said we have to call this segment Where's My Man, because I know as well, being from South London, it's true. It's always like, you go somewhere and you're with a group of people, the next minute someone disappears. Where's my man, bro? Where's my man gone? Do you get what I'm saying? What? My man don't come no more. Even like you're running a youth club. Where's that young person? Where's that young person that always used to come on a Tuesday night? Like, where are they?
So it's not just me, it's you as well.
Yeah. Listen, I'm telling you,
It's
where's
you
my
as well.
man? So that's our segment name, Where's My Man? So you lot get used to that. Today's segment for Where's My Man, Halima, do you want to tell them what we're going to talk about today?
We today are talking about the newly launched, now active, rolling out National Youth Strategy called Youth Matters, officially launched December of 2025. And the reason this segment again is called Where's My Man is because this segment is about locating.
Yes.
So there's some things that we want to query, and we want to locate them, and we want to bring them out. So National Youth Strategy, first one in how many years?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Crazy, isn't it?
20 years.
Yeah,
that's absolutely nuts. So we're going to get into it. I think one of the first question is, why is it taking 20 years?
Interesting, isn't it? I mean, very easy to assume, and probably fair though to assume, that it comes down to the priority of the government in place at the time. So we know, obviously, if we date it back to the mid-2000s, we're still in a Labour government, but obviously then we end up with a Conservative government not too long after.
Don't forget the coalition.
The coalition also, the coalition as well. And so what we end up is a situation whereby maybe it wasn't deemed a priority to have a youth strategy, to have a clear understanding of how young people were going to be provided for in a way that felt integrated. So I think there were definitely initiatives that took place, you know, there were definitely various programs that were put in place for young people across the sector, but I'm going to use some language that I'll take from an event that I was at on Monday, the one that you were going to come to, and shout out to Fozia, who is a director at Children in Need, I want to say. Yeah, phenomenal woman. She she made a very good point whilst on the panel, and she said, you know, when we talk about systemic change, it's about understanding that there is no one problem that has one solution.
Absolutely.
And therefore there is no one intervention or program that is going to solve one problem. But I think what we have seen, unfortunately, over the last 20 years or so is, in my humble opinion, I'll only speak for myself, and this is not about necessarily to say that it is because of a particular political party that this ended up like this, but more just to say that the line of thinking from decision makers was very much like roll out the big program that's supposed to go about making the impact and put all of the investment, resource, focus and attention into that, versus saying, well, what about the state of the sector?
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we'll come on to it in more detail as we talk more, but that's why you also end up in a situation whereby, you know, the amount of funding and resource that has been taken away from the sector and left the sector in such a, I don't want to come across morbid because we're obviously very optimistic when we talk about this, but we have to call a spade a spade. It's left the sector in a truly not only fragmented but almost desolate state. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that comes from the fact that there hasn't been this focus on really investing in the infrastructure of a sector that does so much for young people. You know, like, again, I hold educators and education in the highest regard, but you put so much focus on that, and I would say in the last 20 years as well, and not even to necessarily much avail, because I don't think there's been much success in that space or progress in that space, but you put so much focus on that as a big part of developing young people in their lives that you're now realizing, oh, we didn't invest in the youth sector, but oh wow, that also has loads of impact. So yeah, that's my thoughts on why we've had to wait 20 years. Any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've said that really carefully and thoughtfully. And I think the first quick response from me is they didn't care enough about young people in those 20 years.
That's true.
Right? So we had 2008, the financial crash.
Yeah.
We had that coalition government that were, you know, it was messy around that time. And then what happened a few years after that? Brexit.
Exactly.
What happened a few years after Brexit? The pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? And I think young people were just kind of, I don't want to say forgotten, but I think that's what I mean. I think it was like, yeah, they're okay, you know, they're in school, they're fine. Kind of the big reduction of funding to the youth sector, to youth services, like just this assumption that they'll always be okay.
Yeah.
You know, so imagine that someone's like pushing you out into a storm and they're taking like one layer away from you each time and still assuming you're going to be fine under those conditions.
Of course.
So I think it maybe not forgotten, but the priority was like reduce. They'll be fine. The kids are all right. The kids are not okay.
They're not okay.
They're not okay. Yeah.
I mean, if you said in the nicest way possible, if you just take like the impact COVID had, like, I'm sorry, but the level of independence, maturity, and development being that was experienced. So the level of maturity, independence, and development that has actually taken place. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know what the word is, but what I'm basically saying is, if I compare my interactions, engagement, and even delivery to a group of 15-year-olds in 2015 versus a group of 15-year-olds in 2025, there are stark differences.
100.
And that is because of the fact that the 15-year-olds in 2025 were 10 years old when the pandemic took place. And so their ability to go through that very formative period of transition into secondary school and being able to go on that journey of being able to get comfortable and have that adult, you know, that young adult adolescent experience in a way that was highly interactive with other human beings and other, you know, people who were older than them in teachers and stuff like that, was just not there. And so you then add on top of that the youth services were also not necessarily as available to them due to the fact that some youth services weren't necessarily able to stay open. Some youth services and or organizations just died altogether in the pandemic. We don't even necessarily talk about that enough. You know what I mean? The number who just couldn't survive because at the end of the day, and understandably so, I understand some funders turn to like urgent response stuff and there wasn't necessarily funding there for your traditional youth work services, which again I understand.
But it never really came back, did it?
That's what I mean. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And so then maybe what has happened is new organizations have popped up and maybe they're now getting funding, and that's, again, to some extent, there's reasons for that, but it doesn't necessarily allow for those that were doing really good work pre-pandemic and or during pandemic to kind of sustain themselves. So I say that to say that that bit around young people almost effectively being forgotten is real. It's real because we're seeing that directly in terms of their level of development. So with all of what you've said and obviously what I've added to, this brings us then into this topic of like, where's my man? So if we summarize, we know that in the youth strategy, we've got a few sort of like headline things, right? Let's be real. So we've got things like trying to halve the participation gap. So the fact that, you know, we've got young people who are from more quote unquote affluent backgrounds who have more access to the kind of sort of enrichment activities that one would deem as really, really helpful for their development. We've got, you know, wanting to tackle the issues around sort of like mental health and the mental health inequalities, which in theory kind of gets done through, you know, access to further mental health services in education settings and youth settings, but also then you'd argue that the Young Futures Hubs are going to help with that. So Young Futures Hubs are a big part of the strategy. We know that we've got the stuff around the Youth Guarantee, which is obviously a DWP initiative because of the Get Britain Working white paper, and then that fed into like Get Britain Working, Get Britain Working, which then led to the development of the Youth Guarantee, and obviously that's where probably the largest investment in terms of figures is being seen in the youth strategy, but it's of course an initiative that comes from the Department for Work and Pensions. Other headline
Can we just
things.
pause? How much has been invested into the youth strategy? What's the
total figure?
Yeah.
I tried to do maths on this the other day. I think if you add everything together,
Is it
we're
500?
talking
500 million?
more than that, because
Okay.
you know, like Youth Guarantee is going to be when all of what's been committed so far is there. It's already around 2 point something billion into Youth Guarantee, right? So it was 820 that's named in the youth strategy, but the recent announcements that came out in this month of April are that DWP are putting more money into that, and I think they've said that that's going to total the investment in Youth Guarantee, or sorry, the Jobs Guarantee. So there is a slight difference there, the Jobs Guarantee, because I think there are parts around the Jobs Guarantee that also do go beyond just young people. But in terms of Youth Guarantee, we know there's 820 million named in the youth strategy, that's that. And then there's the 300 or so million, which I think is for about capital investment into organisations that do have buildings and things like that. And then we've also got the 15 million pounds going into, you know, sector workforce development. We've got the 5 million pounds for infrastructure. So we're definitely talking, you know, I would say approaching the 1.5 billion mark, and depending upon how you measure Youth Guarantee and as well as what's going into Young Futures Hubs, you're probably going over a couple billion. So that is there, but
we're going to come back to that.
I think the bit we have to account for is the fact that, as I said, there are a couple of initiatives we've just named which are not necessarily directly being funded out of the DCMS budget, which not to say it has to, but just to say that can sometimes warp people's understanding of how this money is being deployed and for what purpose, because it's not to say necessarily that it's going to fill, which I think is what you're alluding to, the gap in funding that we know is necessary for the youth sector specifically.
That's it.
We know the youth sector specifically has around 1.2 to 1.4 billion pound funding gap. These figures that we're throwing out do not necessarily plug that gap.
Exactly.
Because they serve other purposes. So do you want to?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about this. We were talking before we press record, and I think the way I'm trying to understand the strategy is how much has actually been invested, and then what is the amount that's missing from 2008, right? So that gap, what can we, how can it be filled?
Of course. Yeah, so I think the bit that still needs filling, that's going to require DCMS, of course, but then also the other youth sector funders, which, you know, it's a kind of a shame that it always tends to fall on the same kind of shoulders, but we're going to have to be looking to some of the, you know, National Lottery, of course, because National Lottery, they distribute £1 billion a year, so they're a key player in this. And then obviously some of your other larger trusts and foundations that we know are kind of like mainstays and main players in regards to, you know, deploying money into the youth sector. It's going to be a case of looking at between them and DCMS, as well as then any other government departments or the Treasury itself, to go about plugging this gap in a way that is strategic. Do you get what I mean? But this, I think, what brings us into. So then, did I covered most of the headlines there. The only other thing maybe was the no, I covered everything. So the point we're getting at is, because for us this podcast is not about just talking about the youth sector. Obviously Triumph and what we represent is about racial equity, so we want to now apply the lens of like, so where does racial equity sit within this? Unfortunately, and obviously this is something that I've had very honest conversations with colleagues from DCMS about, and they're very open about as well. So this is not about in any way attacking anybody. This is just about calling a spade a spade. Obviously there isn't any mention, even if you took away the word racial and just talked about equity more broadly, there isn't any specific mention per se in the strategy, apart from one maybe protected characteristic, where there's a clear focus on how do we actually go about closing disparities for those groups of people in our society who are marginalized due to aspects of their identity. And in the case of racial equity, which is where we tend to start, which by the way, I just want to clear something up for everybody who asks me, why does Triumph actually only focus on like the racial equity part and not necessarily other forms of inequity that exist due to other aspects of identity? It's simply because race is the one that you will run from. It's just as simple as that.
To put it simply,
I have been doing this work for a long time, and one thing I know is that even though I do work on equity, diversity and inclusion more broadly, everybody pops up and has so much to say when we talk about trying to make things equitable for people who experience disabilities, or you know, whether it be based on for argument's sake, class, or it could be gender and things like that, and people are really good at engaging with that, and then you just say the word race or ethnicity and so many people get quiet or get nervous and think, what if I say the wrong thing, what if I get it wrong, or actually I don't know, or you know, sometimes it's people's own biases where they're just not necessarily willing to engage. And I'm just letting you know now, this is what's going to unlock the door to all of them. If you get the approaches to racial equity right, you'll find that the approaches, the frameworks and the models required to do that are transferable. But also what you will find is your level of competence and your level of confidence will increase significantly. So unapologetically, we are starting there. Also because, if we're being honest, the way we got to a point of racial inequity goes way back into the periods of time that included colonialism, imperialism, enslavement, all of these different things that occurred in different parts of the world. I'm not just focusing specifically on like, you know, the transatlantic trade of enslaved people, but we're talking about in all different parts of the world when these things were occurring by most commonly countries in Europe. And what we're doing now is we're basically saying, yeah, like we need to start there because this was the most significantly savage period, like set of activities and behaviors that have led to the outcomes we see now. So as far as we're concerned, if we're not willing to address that, then why should I just, I'm not tap dancing for you to say, well, let's just focus on something else when this is in our face. I'm sorry, I'm not tap dancing. So that hopefully that answers your question. I know you lot didn't ask, but I still answered it. Do you get what I'm saying? Back to our conversation. So where does racial equity sit within a new strategy? It's not there.
It's not there. It's not there. Let's just call it out. It's not there because you've read it, I've read it, you've talked about it, I've talked about it. I've spoken to colleagues in the sector about it, and I've really been looking for it. And I think something I was thinking about earlier is our work and how we design our work, deliver our work, evaluate our work. As Lewis just said, it's racial equity. That's our concern. That's what we want to address. That's what we want to challenge. We want to talk about it. We're not embarrassed. Like, look at us. This is our lives.
Yeah. Literally.
This is our experience. But I was thinking, what's the difference? What could have made that strategy different?
Yeah.
The difference for me is we design it into our work. We don't think about it after and add it on top.
Of course.
It's designed in, it's embedded in. There's nothing that we do here where we say, let's think about that after. Yeah. And to me, when I was like looking through the strategy, reviewing the strategy, thinking about the strategy, I was like, where is it? And there it is. Where's it?
Where is it? That's what Halima does every day.
That's what I do. Where is it? And I thought, maybe it's coming.
Sure.
Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they didn't have the tools, the language, the experience. But to just leave it and not to put anything in there to say, we are working with someone, or we know this, we can't address this, but it's coming. Right? Because they're talking big things, and it's very ambitious.
Extremely.
It's very ambitious. It's a 10-year plan, so they've thought about things for the next 10 years across these key areas in consultation with young people. But I think I would like to know, where were global majority young people in those consultations? What's the data that shows that they were consulted, they were spoken to, they were out in the communities? And also that, just to be really honest about it, we just spoke about the pandemic, right? So young people, stark difference from before the pandemic to how they're living their lives now, from their personal skills, how they're moving around their environments in schools, they're scared to like be outside. They're scared to be out. They're scared to go and ask someone for a question about the bus or something. They have like social anxiety.
Of course.
But what happened to black and brown young people whose families, parents, were disproportionately affected by that pandemic through workforce, through labour, through healthcare? How many of their community did they see die? Do you see what I mean? So that there needed to be that kind of intentionality. Like, okay, talking about underserved, disadvantaged young people in this area, and we're going to allocate more funding here. Okay, yes, we want that, of course we do. But then what does that mean for the different kind of layers of that community, right? Across those different kinds of ethnic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, because we're all suffering, but we're not all suffering the same.
Not all suffering the same.
Right? So I think the thing I was trying to locate, where's my man? That's the segment we're on. What happened there? Like, are you telling me in a government department that's resourced how it is, with maybe a very large team working on this, that it went to review, it went to edit, it got signed off, someone designed the strategy, they did press conference, they did a launch in Peckham. In Peckham, which is interesting.
All right, listen, we can
That's
talk about that.
interesting.
We can talk about that.
Why did they do their launch in Peckham? Don't know what kind of positioning that was, but they did a launch. It was a thing, and not one person there said, "Hold on, can we speak to some experts in this? Can we speak to some young people?" I don't know.
So this is interesting. I mean, obviously we're a bit limited of time for this episode, but I think what we're going to do going forward is where we think we don't know a particular piece of information or something like that, we'll look for it. One thing that did come to my mind as you were speaking is I joined one of the webinars that was put on by DCMS post strategy coming out. I think it was the February one.
I remember,
And I did write down notes on, because they broke down the methodology behind how the actual strategy was developed, and most importantly what I was interested in was exactly what you said, who was consulted and how. So it's often quoted that like 14,000 young people were engaged with as part of developing the strategy.
Big group.
Which of course a big part of that is a survey, but also then some of that is supposed to be focus groups and all of those kinds of things. So I believe in some of the notes I wrote or screenshotted that the data regarding the ethnic makeup of those that were consulted, I may have. So we can look for that to see, just to see. But whether that's broken down based on how many just did a survey and how many actually were what proximity, I should say, to the decision making is the most important part. What proximity to decision making were the young people from those communities, and also how representative of the different quote-unquote archetypes of young people from those communities are they? Did you just get the one which we often talk about is like the golden child, so to speak,
the gifted,
and then go they'll just represent that whole community because that community is a monolith. Do you get what I'm saying? Which we know is not necessarily effective or not the way you should do something. So we can explore that for sure. What I would say when we talk about this where's my man concept and why is racial equity not in there, I've been told through reliable sources that part of it was not wanting to name one particular protected characteristic or form of inequity over another, because of the fact that you didn't want to almost like, let's say for example, name race but you hadn't named gender, or name race but you hadn't named, do you know what I mean? But this is whataboutery. That's it. You're preempting whataboutery.
I think it's tired.
And that's not necessarily the way you should be approaching it. And I think this is important to understand, because here's where I would like to go with it right now. We don't have a lot of time to talk about this because of the time we left ourselves. We might even end up having to pause and then carry this conversation on after. We'll do a part 2, or I was going to say after we finish our next meeting. But I say that to say, here's where I'd like to go with it. I think the reason why it doesn't exist there dates back to the experiences of people from black and brown communities migrating to the UK, especially in the Windrush generation, And the fact that at that period of time you had a color bar, especially for those who were the children of those that had migrated in the 50s and 60s, their children were experiencing that color bar of, you know, finding it challenging to be able to sustain themselves in education, finding it challenging to sustain themselves in employment. And the color bar exists not because color is the issue, but because they're seeking to almost ignore one's difference in experience at that time. And I think this is what has happened, is that that same culture exists still within the fabric of our society. And so what's happening is we've got, I'm just going to say what I want to say in it, and at the end of the day, if we get cancelled, we get cancelled.
No one's getting
cancelled. Kemi better not try to say that we shouldn't teach young people and or people in general about critical race theory, because of the fact that it supposedly positions people from global majority communities to feel like they are less than. If you look at the true makeup and the pillars behind what critical race theory is, and shout out to all of the colleagues like the Kimberly Crenshaws and all of the colleagues that went to Harvard who formed this particular theory, they spoke, one specific thing that was really important as part of it was race consciousness, and actually trying to overcome the color blindness that occurs. And I think what's happened here is by choosing to take a colorblind approach, you lack racial consciousness, and therefore you are not applying the lens of being critical about the difference in experience that is had by people from global majority communities, which you perfectly outlined when you talked about their experience during the pandemic. And this is another example of why, if we choose to ignore something as important as critical race theory, we are not then going to be able to develop significant strategies that have significant budgets attached to it, that are there to provide resources for people in this country who are again going to miss out on having access to those. I'm going to say a strategy because it doesn't have to even be specific to the National Youth Strategy, but you broke it down perfectly, Halim, as I was mentioning, in regards to the fact that you detailed the difference in experience had by people from global majority communities during the pandemic, and how that is an example of you are able to critique and be critical of the current outcomes through the lens of race, right? Where do you want to go next with that?
I think, just picking up from what you were saying before we took our break, if that is absent, like the kind of analysis, if we're completely omitting race, then that, I'm not saying that's what the youth strategy did, but there isn't explicitly young people who are racialized, minoritized, are disproportionately affected because of X, Y, Z. From what I saw, I didn't see any language like that there. So if we're completely omitting it, that, to me, how I understand that is the system, the structure, the strategy, the government department, the charity, the company, the school, all of those things are continuously reproducing and operating under the system and structure of whiteness as power. And then we're going to link that to, or we can link that to, like, the creation of whiteness, why that was created to further the colonial agenda. It was like the biggest tool, sensibility politics, even beauty standards, like whiteness here. And then what we end up doing is we're either just shooting forwards and assimilating to whiteness that we saw. You mentioned the Windrush generation. We saw that generation. We saw South Asian communities in the late 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that assimilation to whiteness. Even if we do that consciously or unconsciously, that will happen. Or we're just kind of like orbiting around whiteness. And no one's saying, hold on. We need to just call it out and say things are different, and they're different because of this, this and this. And that's, for me, if we go back to our segment title, Where's My Man? Where's the location of race and racial inequity within the 10-year £1 billion youth strategy that has been launched and is being rolled out? And to be honest with you, Lewis, you know, we're talking about it from the lens of like our work and the youth sector, but for me, as like a non-white person, it makes me feel sad. It actually makes me feel sad because I think we're still here and we're still asking, like, we should have moved on from this, trying to locate this and this question. We should have moved on and we should be fighting a different fight now, right? But we're still here. So it does, which
is a real shame. And I think you're right when you say we're orbiting whiteness, it's because of the fact that we've centered it, and obviously then we've made it the norm. So in terms of design, now what happens is you design a strategy that makes the obviously we appreciate from a population standpoint, still the majority population in the UK being people who are white, you make their experience the norm, and then you design accordingly for that. But then obviously by not designing from the margins, which is obviously a common tool and approach that's used within equity, diversity and inclusion work, by not designing from the margins, what you do is you continue to marginalize. Do you know what I mean? So we don't really have an option but to design from the margins if we say we're going to be equitable. Do you know what I mean? But then I would add to your wisdom by saying, oftentimes when I think about the concept of assimilation, I think about almost like the opposite to that being ethnocentrism, and this idea of actually, and I know ethnocentrism is most commonly spoken about in the context of like when you go to say another part of the world and not applying your same values and behaviors and thinking that is a norm for you in your culture when you go to somewhere else and maybe something is their culture. So the example I often use when I train is like, it's not fair for you to go to another part of the world where maybe insects are a delicacy and be like, oh my god, how can you eat insects? Don't bring your thinking from where you eat your things to, do you know what I mean? But I say that to say that in this case, ethnocentrism is really important and was really important in the design of the strategy because of the stark differences in experience by people from different ethnic backgrounds. And you know, you agreed with and furthered the point earlier about that isn't just based on necessarily the pandemic in 2020, but you know, you gave that fantastic timeline of even just going back as early as the year 2000, but of course we can go back even further, right? And I think this is what I find interesting, because for the times when there have been strategies to do with whether it be increase in levels of employment, whether it be increase in access to education, you know, like if we took it through the lens of education, we could go back to the, you know, what 70s and 80s when, you know, Bernard Cord's book around sort of how to educate, how the British school system made the West Indian child educationally subnormal was a big thing. All of these different examples of where marginalization has occurred through policies and practices, and say we're not learning from mistakes. Do you get what I'm saying? But I think it's because we're not deeming them as mistakes. That, do you know what I mean? The people who you just named, be it departments, be it charities, be it organizations, be it those that are decision makers, whatever institutions, are not even necessarily seeing these things as mistakes per se and making them front and center when then going on to design.
So I hear that, but that means in their thinking, in their thought process, in their work, that the reality of racial inequity doesn't exist.
100%.
Oh God.
I'm saying that. And the reason I say that, is because, and this is not about throwing shade at any individual people, because as we both know, and as we will say very honestly to our listening and watching audience, like, we are currently talking to DCMS about how we can support them with embedding racial equity into the delivery of the National Youth Strategy, because of the fact that we know that it is important, but also because we do think that the people who we've spoken to at the very least who are behind it, we believe that it was clearly an oversight and clearly something that they are now realizing they did not prioritize. And I think they feel a lot of they have a lot of awareness of that. They probably feel a bit of guilt around that. And what we're saying is that's valid. And if anything, actually, it's important to feel that guilt, or else you won't change your behavior. But we can help. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, we can help. So I'm saying this not to try and throw shade at anybody in particular, because at the end of the day, we wouldn't be able to achieve our mission as Triumph if we just went around pointing fingers. That's not what we're here to do. We're not here to tear anybody down. What we are here to say is, it wasn't a priority. It was dismissed. Even though we like to think that our level, or the volume and the repetition that goes into us talking about these issues up to this point in 2026 has been enough to move the needle, so that it's at least of a higher preference and awareness to the people who we think are decision makers. Maybe sometimes we're a bit naive and have to realize it isn't as much of a priority to them or top of mind for them as we probably thought it was. And actually, the reason I say that as well is because I think sometimes they're still in thinking but not doing, and that's also because, and this is where I'll kind of bring it back to, I'm not going to say our side per se, but more to the people who suggest that they are action takers in this space. What you also find is some of them are more talkers than they are equipping with tools. So what I mean by that is, even if we just talk about the world of EDI, there's a lot of quote unquote EDI consultants who are actually just they're really good at regurgitating information that sounds amazing and is true,
Yes.
but not equipping someone with the tools to say this is what you can now do going forward. It's
actual
practically,
change. Yeah.
operationally, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? And that, in my experience, that requires you to do less talking and trying to sound smart and actually just going, see, when you do this thing, just do this. But don't ask me too many questions, do this and trust me, and then come back to me when you've done it and tell me how it went, and then let's iterate based on how it went versus me trying to give you a 30-page breakdown on all the different things you could do and then you don't do anything. Because that's what's currently happening. I'm going to be real with you. There are people in DCMS right now who have been given so much information and are now in inertia due to having so many different ways of looking at something, so many
For
different
real.
things to consider,
Yeah.
because no one's just simplified it and said, listen,
Yeah.
come, let me whisper something to you, just do this. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, just do this and do it like that, it'll be fine. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, so that's what's happening.
It's become really conflated.
It's become conflated and complex and confusing, so they're now in inertia. And so what we're saying is, we'll simplify it for you, we'll make it very clear, we'll operationalize it, and you go. So this is very disheartening if we look at it through the lens we're looking at, but obviously in Triumph, I know we didn't really per se do Let Me Cook or say it explicitly, but I feel like there was a couple of Let Me Cook moments in this. But I want to...
What's Let Me Cook?
Sorry, Let Me Cook for everybody is... it's very Gen Z when we say Let Me Cook. You know,
Is it though?
you see, no,
Because-
you know, but I know we've been saying it, but you know, with Gen Z, what I've clocked here, they use it heavy nowadays. Like they'll be like,
and where did they get it from? They got it from us. It's not their invention. I love Gen Z.
they
by the
definitely
way.
got it from us, but I think how
it's
they
not a
use
Gen
it
Z
and the
thing.
frequency they use it is different.
Okay.
They'll be like, nah, he's cooking, or like, nah, let me cook, man, just let me cook, or they'll say let me cook and then they'll say let me land. One of the two.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying? But I say that to say it definitely
I
came
say
from us.
both.
We're gonna take credit. We're 100% gonna take credit, 100%. But I just think to explain what it is like, there are going to be times in this podcast, and I think it happened once or twice in this conversation without us formally saying we're going into Let Me Cook now, but where we've taken a particular thought process and we just need a chance to just flesh it out,
Simmer it.
do you get what I'm saying? Like, you know what's funny, all of this like cooking analogy, obviously you see me use it in the solutions-based framework, but when I was in secondary school, people used to always just laugh at me because I always used to say, like, if I needed to go and think about something, I'd be like, no, I just need to let it marinate. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, but then people were laughing like, what's this guy talking about? But
Why is
now
that funny?
but they didn't have the wherewithal to know. When I was 14, 15,
You're
saying I
still
need to let it
ahead.
marinate, they weren't
Okay.
understanding the levels. Like, you need marination, bro.
levels,
Do you know what I'm
thank
saying? Because if we
you.
don't let it marinate,
Yes.
what's gonna happen now? What,
You
we're
need to
just
let
gonna,
it- yeah.
in my case, I can't talk about meat because I'm vegan, so I'm gonna just say what, we're gonna just take the mushroom and fling it in the pan and just hope for the best.
You're going to let it ferment.
You need to let it ferment.
You're gonna let it
sometime. I've got
ferment.
cabbage on the side of my kitchen right now, Halima,
gonna
in brine. I'm making
ferment.
sauerkraut. I
That's
make
when you-
sauerkraut now, you know.
Nice.
I make sauerkraut. That's what I'm saying, I'm a fermenter.
I need to come to your kitchen.
I'm telling you, I'm active.
There's
Do you know what I'm
everything
saying?
there.
My sauerkraut's
Yeah.
active.
Kombucha,
What? Red
yeah.
cabbage, onion, garlic, cardamom pods,
I
just
want
in the
some.
brine. Yeah, man. Just
I buy my
just
sauerkraut.
see what I'm saying? There's levels to this.
Yes.
Come on, man, we can make it. So I say
we
that
did
to say,
cook.
we did cook.
We did
But this
cook.
brings me into that we don't do this. We don't do that here, which is in our case.
I think I mentioned that as well.
What's that?
So we have another segment.
Yes.
We don't do that here.
Yeah.
And that segment was to kind of highlight to listeners, watchers, things that just don't happen in our space.
In our space now.
And I think I did a little bit of that when I said, I was really thinking about the strategy, and I thought, what's the difference in how they did it and how we do it, right? So I said,
Give us another 60 seconds on that, because I think we
Okay.
need got a chance to flesh that out further.
Okay. So I said the difference for us is we embed by design.
Yes.
They embed,
Yes.
sprinkle on top. Oh, we forgot about that. We need to add that in, and it becomes sloppy. It's sloppy. That's what we do. We embed.
Oh, I forgot the cloves, and you just quickly put cloves on the top of it.
And it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't
right?
work.
You got to cook it into the
That's
masala.
it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work. So our kind of approach in terms of inclusion of racial equity work,
Yes.
it's designed in, it's embedded in by design. And what I can see now is it was forgotten or it was fragile. it was fragile because they didn't want to offend certain groups,
Sure.
or they said, oh God, you know, if we have to include race, then we have to include disability, then we have to include gender, then we have to include faith. Isn't that so lazy?
Very lazy.
Right?
Very lazy.
Because I had this conversation yesterday, and I said, well, we just include everything. Like, to me, that is so normal.
Yeah.
We just include everything, because now we're going to have, not in today's episode, but another conversation about intersectionality and multiple identities coexisting. And like, how can you not just include everything?
Of course.
So I think we don't do that here. Is we don't sprinkle on top.
No.
It's embedded in. It's
to.
in our design. It's in our thinking. And to me, I don't know if have super kind of put myself in or ended up in like a massive echo chamber where I hear something as, like, to me it's wild.
Yeah.
You've how many, 1 year in the making, 18 months in the making with a
1
team?
year, yeah, 1
that's
year at
resourced,
least. Yeah, maybe more, yeah.
resourced, money, design, consultation, IT, infrastructure, everything is there. And you're saying, we didn't want to offend. It's tired.
But in that time, is what makes it worse. In that time, if you go back to 18 months, then that makes it worse because it means twice. If you go back 12 months, it definitely happened once. But in that time, we've also seen unrest on the streets in various parts of the country, specifically linked to race, ethnicity and religion.
There you go.
So to ignore it then becomes a further punch in the guts because of the fact that that happened in your face. That's worse to me.
Yeah, it's worse.
And the reason
It's
I say if you go
worse.
back
When you do
18
it,
months,
it's
we're talking
worse.
about the summer of 2024 when it was
Of course, we were
really
scared to go
prevalent.
home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then if we're talking about the September or so of 25, that's 3 months before release. Come on, it's in your face.
And I just, I can't wrap my head around it, because do you know how many sign-offs something like that has to have in a government department, right?
Of course.
So I think we still need to understand why, because I think them saying to us, we didn't want to highlight one protected characteristic, like that to me just isn't good enough. And I think like as us, as Triumph, as individuals, as people in the youth sector, like we need to like demand a bit more.
Yeah, we do.
And I say demand and not request.
Yeah.
We need to demand more, because this doesn't really serve our full community, does it?
My former mentor always just say you have to be demanding. You have to be demanding. This isn't a case of where you have to be demanding. Like, because why do we have to be demanding? Because we owe it to the young people.
We owe it to the young people.
That's it. What better place to end than it? We owe it to the young people.
Good place to
So
end.
it's real. It's like, we got to do it. Do you get what I mean? And so you're hearing for the first time, so everybody else here. Or did I maybe have to say it to you? So the event on Monday, and I mentioned already Fozia being one of the speakers.
She's coming.
I want her on the podcast. Told her already.
Let's
She's
call
up.
her.
She's open to it.
Let's call her.
But there was another person on the panel, a guy called Matt, who is from Rhode Island in the States.
Okay.
And I need to look more into their organisation, but when you hear a name and then you listen to what he's saying about the work they do, and they're basically triumphing Rhode Island.
Oh wow.
I was like, we need to talk to you on the podcast, like 100%.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, let's do it. Do you get what I mean?
Let's do it.
So definitely want him on the pod as well.
Okay.
And then obviously there's so many people in the sector we could have on this pod. Do you get what I mean? That we know, that we think would be amazing.
And we want people to reach out to us.
Oh,
if
of
they wanna
course,
come
reach
and
out to
join
us. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But those are just two that off the top of my head, I was like, we need them on the pod. Do you get what I'm saying? So definitely we'll have guests.
Let's do it.
Do you get what I mean?
Where can people listen?
So we're going to make sure that this goes out on all podcasting platforms. So this is the good thing about, are we doing free promo? I don't know if we're doing free promo. This is the good thing about the platform that most podcasters use in order to be able to distribute their podcasts to all the necessary audio platforms, but we will be using that particular piece of software to do that as well.
Nice.
And we will make sure it's therefore on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, all the ones that it tends to be on. And obviously we'll also be uploading the videos of these to YouTube as well, so in case you prefer to take it in there. And no doubt we'll post clips to LinkedIn. Do you get what I'm saying? We'll post clips to LinkedIn, maybe our Instagram and TikTok as well. Ria will decide how best to approach that, but definitely LinkedIn, because we're already in the right aspect ratio for that if we want to do that anyway. So yeah.
And we actually reply. So
We do.
if you leave us comments, we're going to reply. You're going to hear from Halima, or you're going to hear from Lois.
You're actually
Someone's going to
hear from
reply
us.
to you.
You're
We
gonna
want to
hear
talk
from
to you.
us. We do. So with that being said, people, that is episode 1 of the youthful
There we go.
podcast, brought to you by Triumph, I am Lewis Howell,
I'm Halima.
and we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much.